Good evening and welcome. My name is Kate Jones, and the president of the League of Women Voters of Frederick County. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan group. We encourage informed and active participation at all levels of government. We strive to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and we influence public policy through education and advocacy. At tonight's meeting, we have Katie Nash, who is running for Frederick City District 1 Council. Um, please welcome Katie Nash. I'm also introducing our moderator tonight, who is Nanette Hobson, who is the Voter Services coordinator for these forums. Go ahead, Nanette.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kate. Again, my name is Nanette Hobson, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Frederick County. And we're very pleased to have Council Member Katie Nash with us today to speak to her, about her campaign for the First District City Council seat. Ms. Nash is a council member currently, and we're very pleased that she is able to speak with us this afternoon, even though she is running unopposed in this election. We thought we would figure out a way to get her to have some exposure to the people that she might be representing in the coming election. So how this is going to go is we're going to give Ms. Nash 2 minutes to have an opening statement. And then I'm going to ask her a series of questions, of which we will time her answers either to 1 minute or 2 minutes, depending. You can assume, Ms. Nash, that you have 1 minute to answer a question unless I say otherwise. I will tell you at the end of the question if you have 2 minutes. The time begins as soon as you begin speaking, and we will signal you as you get closer to the end of your time. So let's begin with your opening statement. Please welcome Katie Nash.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm going to apologize in advance for any background noise you hear. I'm currently attending the Maryland Association of Counties conference, and the reason I'm there is I'm advocating for all of our priorities, our funding for 15 North, working with our county partners to advocate for more education funding. So the work of the council doesn't stop because of the election. And of course, we're already preparing, believe it or not, for the legislative session coming up in January. So sorry for the background noise. It's almost like we're back in COVID, right? Nobody wants that. So a little bit about me. I currently serve as your city council president, and that is a position that I was elected to unanimously by my peers when we transitioned the government from a board of aldermen to a city council. My husband Josh and I live with our 3 teenagers. We live in Tasker's Chance. So the district that I am running to represent is the west end of the city of Frederick. We have Key Parkway, so Tasker's Chance to Waverly to Walnut Ridge and over to Rosemont Avenue. So it's a very diverse district. We have a lot of pedestrian safety challenges that we need to address. Specifically, we have a lot of folks who love to run, walk, bike, and use transit. So we're looking to definitely work on the bus shelter issue, install some more bus shelters. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm really blessed to have this opportunity to come back and serve. I was elected in 2021, so this will be my second term. So still learning a lot, still looking forward to learning from my peers. Very, very excited about the district form of government and learning from all the different new folks that are running for office this year. We're going to have a great team to represent the city. And I'm really looking forward to a strong team who works together and collaboratively. I believe very, very firmly that the way that we combat the dysfunction in the federal government is by working together at the local level. So I'm very appreciative of the League for organizing this and looking forward to the discussion.
Well, thank you again for being here. First question is, why did you choose the first district to run for in your second term?
So I was planning to run at large. I felt like having been elected at large the first time, I was going to run at large, and then we saw that there wasn't someone running in District 1. It is a district that definitely deserves very strong representation. I've been an advocate for the West End since I got elected. In fact, that was sort of my big push, was to work with others to get the community center on the West Side Regional Park. Definitely pedestrian safety issues is something that we all are working very strongly to include. And so really for me, for District 1, I want to represent very strongly that part of town, my part of town, and represent my neighbors. We have very simple issues to work on, such as slowing speeding down, but we also have complex issues like advocating for more funding and public investment especially on the Waverly corridor. So very much looking forward to representing my district.
You already mentioned how diverse the first district is, and as you know, many of the city's immigrant and undocumented residents live in the first district. What do you think the top issues are facing that community in Frederick?
So I don't think that we can overestimate the impact of having ICE agents, people that are in paramilitary outfits, showing up on our streets and rounding up people, our neighbors. I don't think that we should not normalize that, and we need to call it for what it is, which is an atrocity against our neighbors. I believe that we should love our neighbor, and when I see this happening, it affects me, it affects my family, and it affects the kids that are about to start school, their families going to work every day. So this cannot be underestimated, and it needs to be called out. And so know your rights training is something that I'm very, very supportive of. It's going to take all of us to really continue to call this behavior out as wrong, and just continue to work to make sure that we mitigate the impacts of just a group of people living in fear every day.
So now that you've been in the council for a term, how do you think this new charter and this new form of representation is going to serve city residents?
So I love this question because I'm so passionate about the changes that we made, and we still have work to do. A charter is a living document, and so it took about 2 years for the work to happen. There was a panel that was appointed by the mayor. I went to most of those meetings. There were a lot of considerations. I think 19 amendments that were considered, 19 different recommendations. So there was a lot. And of course, the thing that I'm most passionate about is the creation of a legislative branch. So historically, we had a mayor and board of aldermen, but the mayor served as a member of the board of aldermen. It was just sort of weird and clunky and not something that most folks were familiar with. And so moving to a city council that is an independent form of a legislative branch and districts, now we're going to have 7 people at the district level, including the mayor, who serve the city. I think it's going to lead to a greater sense of collaboration and also drilling down on these neighborhood issues and making sure that people are heard.
So Ms. Nash, this primary election will have only one ballot, allowing only Democrats to vote. Republicans and independent voters will not get a chance to weigh in until the general election. How do you feel about that?
I appreciate this question. We had a forum last night, and the concept of open primaries came up, and we received some legal advice that sort of gave us all a pause about opening the primaries. I think the courts are still looking at how to do that in a fair way. I'll just say, with respect to the Republicans, they had a chance to run their candidates. No one prevented them from having candidates run for office. We do have 2 Republicans running at the district level and 1 running for mayor. They didn't have candidates to run. I'm not sure what else there is to say other than that's their responsibility to find their candidates, and we have great candidates running on our side who are ready to serve day one. So certainly next time, maybe they'll be a little bit more familiar with how the rules are and they can run their candidates.
The Golden Mile is close to your district, not quite in your district, but many of District 1 residents patronize the businesses along there, as do we all. There's long been talk of making the Golden Mile and the surrounding communities more pedestrian friendly. What needs to be done in your view, and how can we make it happen?
So I just want to say thank you very much for the very specific question about the district. It's something that I've been lamenting this whole time, is that we haven't been asked very specific district questions about the neighborhoods that we seek to serve. We do have some very exciting improvements planned for the Golden Mile, which includes a bus transit lane, but we have to advocate for state funding to make that happen, which is one of the reasons I'm here instead of being at home today. I do think that there's a lot we can do to make the current structure better. So I mentioned bus shelters. I do think that, we need to continue the work to make sure that we're doing everything we can to slow cars down in our corridors. I personally represent Key Parkway. Obviously we're all aware of the tragedies that have befallen the Hillcrest community. So I'm really excited that Cesar and I are going to work together to make sure that our part of town is heard. But it's really just about programming and making sure those projects happen in our part of town.
So as a Frederick native, I actually was around when the Fredericktown Mall was opened and was a center for shopping, for city residents. And now, as we all know, it's just been an eyesore for many, many years. What is going to happen to that site, and what could or should it be?
So I think that the conversation around the Fredericktown Mall really needs to be about how are we incentivizing private landowners to do more with their property. There's always the carrot and the stick. I think that, we have a landowner right now, and I've actually had meetings with the real estate agents that represent that property. They're holding on to it because they believe that they've got some real potential to do reinvestment and some more, opportunity, but we haven't seen that realized. And so there's some additional conversations that need to happen about what could that site be. I think the city needs to lead in that conversation. We need to lead with any major employer site. So any big parcel that we have, and that includes the Oak Street property that isn't in my district, but is close. It's across the street on the Golden Mile. Any major big piece of property, we need to be very crystal clear about what we want to go there and how are we doing the work to make sure that private landowners in those instances are receiving that feedback and we're getting those projects done in a way that actually makes sense for the city residents.
Okay, so the next question is a big question. So we're going to give you 2 minutes to answer this question because we're going to start talking about affordable housing, which may be the biggest issue of this election season. The most common observation is that while there appears to be a lot of development, much of it is out of reach financially for low and middle income residents in this city. Is eliminating the in lieu of fee in which developers pay a fee instead of meeting requirements for affordable housing the answer?
Okay, so I'm going to address that question very specifically, very, very quickly, and then I'm going to move on to the rest of the conversation because the MPDU in lieu of is often held up as a panacea, and I don't believe that it is. I don't think it's going to address the problem. However, clearly the MPDU in lieu of amount is too low if every single time a developer opts to pay that amount. I do not want to see it go away completely because I believe it can be a very powerful tool to realize additional housing at all levels of affordability. My point being that if we take a look at all levels of affordability, so from homelessness on up, we can't expect that the MPDU in lieu of program, if we do away with it, developers will never build housing that is right above homelessness. And that's the concern. The concern is we need to make sure that we're taking care of everyone. I've been a homeless advocate for a very long time, but there needs to be a continuum. People will fall on hard times. Maybe they'll be homeless, but then how do we get them out of homelessness? And if we do away with the tools that we have to take that money, to pool that money and invest it in a project for people that are just above the line and then people that are a little bit higher, it's called AMI, right? So we're talking about income levels, and that can seem a little cold or calculating, but we're sort of looking at things as developers in the private sector look at them, and reasons why developers will never build on their own below market rate housing. They'll never do that. And so we as a government have to figure out what conditions need to exist to build right below and then a little further below so that there's a complete continuum. Now that's hard. It's hard work. And the reason that people get frustrated is they haven't seen it in reality yet. But if you look at the work that we're doing currently in the council, and this is something that I'm so passionate about creating a legislative branch, because as of January, we began to chunk up policy measures that needed to happen for each income level. And so I'd invite you to ask me more about that. 2 minutes is not enough time, but I realize
Yes.
wanted to address that.
I think some more aspects of that may come up as in our conversation. So I'm going to circle back a little bit right now, actually, because you've already sort of mentioned ICE and its effect on the community. So the Frederick City Police, as we know, has a policy of not inquiring about immigration status, but we know that the Sheriff's Department does not have that policy. So what I want to know is, what is your position on how the Sheriff's Department is engaged in it with our immigrant community, because as you know, if you get arrested, there's only one jail, and you can end up in the county's policy purview, if you will, regardless of whether you are a city resident.
So my record on this is very clear. There was a bill in the Maryland General Assembly this past year that I testified in favor of, to basically supersede those county agreements with federal agencies. I do not believe it's appropriate for county agencies to have their own individual agreements with the federal government to terrorize our citizens. And I do believe in our residents, and I believe that's what's happening right now. So I testified on that. I also spoke at some rallies and things like that. I'm very much opposed to the 287G program. That being said, our police chief especially, we have meetings about monthly. He knows that I am a watchdog on this issue. I believe very firmly that the role of a citizen led legislature, which is what we are, is to be the oversight to our police department. It is very different than coalescing and cowtailing to the federal government. We are the bosses. We approve the budget. We have to ask the hard questions.
And speaking along that vein of government bodies beyond the city of Frederick, the new policies and actions of the current administration, which you also have raised so far in this conversation, have residents feeling unsafe, and not just our immigrant community, but our LGBTQ plus communities as well. As a city leader, how will you continue to address those fears?
So if you know me, you know this issue is very, very near and dear to my heart and to my family. I get very emotional about it when I talk about it. It is a real, everyday thing. We're watching now the Supreme Court decisions about marriage, and it's a very emotional time for a lot of folks that are in this work. And I just want to say wholeheartedly that the first thing that we need to do is show empathy and love to our LGBTQ plus neighbors. I think providing as much mental resources as we can, support groups. The city's done a pretty good job. We actually had our first Pride Parade this year. I was instrumental in making sure that happened. I know these are largely symbolic, but as we work together to create a culture of love and respect and just unceasing advocacy for the rights of our neighbors and our humans. That's the best that I have right now. But the work continues, and I just want to say I'm here with you all.
So what would be your legislative priorities? And you have 2 minutes for this answer.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about housing. I know, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of discussion that's happening. And I think what's really exciting is when we have an election like this and everybody brings their ideas forward. And there's so much work to do that I encourage all of my fellow council members to come forward and bring their work and work with us in a collaborative way to move as many solutions forward as possible. I'm really excited about the conversation about the single room occupancy ordinance. This basically would now allow like dorm style living for folks, and we're all sort of familiar with that. We all know that we don't need as much space as we have, and the ability to have more people live in a smaller footprint will definitely, it's cheaper, it's more affordable, right? And so that's one option. Another option we're going to be looking at, of course, is zoning reform to incentivize more affordable housing from the 60 to 100% AMI level. So that's below market rate, just maybe that $60,000 a year income level. We see so many of our working neighbors, that's their income that they're in, and we want to see the housing stock improve for that affordability level. That level is important because that's really where the state comes in as a partner and helps us fund those. So a lot of the projects that you might see that are affordable housing, I've worked really hard to get those online. And that's where a lot of that NPDU in lieu of money has gone to move those projects forward. So that's certainly a priority as well. Changing veins a little bit, just the continued work to strengthen the legislative branch. I think I have a unique set of skills and a unique background to make sure that happens and continues to happen, especially being one of the incumbents that will come back. I want to make sure that all of my council members, every single one of them, even when they might say something I don't agree with, I want to make sure that everybody is successful. And what that success looks like will be dictated by them and their district, or if they're at large, what their priorities are. So something I'm very passionate about as we return.
Another 2-minute question. The federal government and the state government are both cutting back on budgets. We're going to see fewer grants, and we're going to see we're going to see less giving for the projects that we are doing that rely on those funds. How will you help to manage the city budget with the possibility of us hitting some of the hardest economic times that we've seen in a while?
So before I came to the city council, believe it or not, I worked with the United Way. I was on the board of the United Way for about 9 years. One of my roles before I left was I was on the grants committee that worked to get money out during COVID. I was the chair of that committee, and we were constantly working with nonprofits to make sure when the money came in, we were getting it out as soon as possible. Nonprofits are known for their ability to be nimble, to address challenges very quickly. I think as a city, we can best support the nonprofit community by improving our own budgeting. So moving to a more performance-based budget where we're actually tracking our income, or excuse me, we're tracking our outcomes and measuring our goals and what we're trying to do with our budgeted money to affect those goals. And to that end, as part of our performance budgeting, including our nonprofit community in that conversation, because I don't think that the city can do what the nonprofit community does as effectively, but we can be a partner in funding. We've had a lot of discussion this past year about what the best approach is. We had a meeting with the county council where we had our nonprofits come in and talk to us about the challenges that they're facing. Those conversations need to keep occurring. We need to keep working on action steps that we can take that are reasonable. This work is best done as a partnership, and we have county partners, we have state partners. And one of the best things I think about our community is that we don't have to have a discussion or fight about the need. It's more often that we're having the discussion and fight about the tactics and the best way, which is really actually part of democracy, right? The back and forth and the discussions about what we think is best and the best way to move forward. But what I will say is that we all agree that we need to move forward and we need to step in and make sure that our neighbors aren't suffering unnecessarily. So appreciate the question. And mostly I'll just say that we all just have the desire to work together and have a heart for it.
Okay, last question. You get 2 minutes. What does Frederick look like in 5 years?
So I want to draw everybody's attention to the City of Frederick Comprehensive Plan. And the reason I want to do that is because every 10 years we go through this process, and this was done before I got there. Like I said, I'm new. This is my first term. But the group that served before me worked really hard to pass our 2010 comprehensive plan. And in 2020, I said 2010, but 2020 comprehensive plan. And then 10 years we'll do it again. This comprehensive plan is important because it outlines what we should be doing as a community. It talks about many things. Small area plans, and I know this is like in the weeds, but this is really what we should all be talking about in terms of planning and growth. Small area plans are done for every it's a sector basically of our community. Those sector plans are what dictates those sector plans dictate essentially what the planning looks like, what our roads are, and that's where the best community input opportunities are. And so I wanted to flag that because if I get my way in the next term, we're going to be talking a lot about small area plans. So in that vein, we will need to work with our county partners to continue to advocate for school capacity. There's a lot of criticism about growth, and I know that happens every 4 years. Growth happens because people want to move to the city of Frederick, and we can't have affordable housing by constricting the housing that we have. So you'll never hear me say that we need to shut down all housing. I will say that we are getting to a point where we need to be very clear about our infrastructure investments and our school investments to enable that growth to continue to occur in an equitable way. So that's going to be a conversation that we're having, and the small area planning process and the comprehensive plan is the way to make sure that that process happens in a very systemic way, in a way that has all voices heard and fairly at the table. So looking forward to the conversation about that too.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And you now have 2 minutes for your closing statements.
So I just want to thank you for listening and just really thank everyone who has taken the time to be interested and get excited about the city election. I mentioned earlier that, there's a lot of reasons to be discouraged at the federal level. There's a lot, the news every day brings us something to be upset about. And I share that. I share that concern, and I share that. Some days, just the other day when the president announced that he was basically taking over the DC police, I had a very low moment. We all have them. But I really do find the inspiration in our work at the local level. It doesn't have to be in the city council. It could be in your faith community. It could be just at your children's schools or we were at Butterfly Ridge Elementary School. I don't have children. Mine are big now, but I found an enormous amount of energy from just being at Butterfly Ridge at their back to school event. So I've just encouraged everybody to keep finding their inspiration where they can. We're definitely all in this together. And really, just to the extent that you get engaged, the city election, we have a lot of new candidates. It's hard to run for office, and a lot of folks are experiencing this for the first time. And in 4 years, we'll do it all again. And I encourage anyone that wants to learn more about the districts or how to run for office, you can reach out to me at any time. I'll talk to anybody. I'll coach anybody on through the process. You can start looking at it now if you're interested. If you're thinking, I don't like it that she's unopposed, I'll tell you all about it, and so you can run in 4 years. We really benefit from the conversation, the interest, and I think there's our best days are ahead. And I just always believe that. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or any concerns. If I've talked about anything today regarding housing, especially, it's a huge area of policy that we're going to keep working through. Sometimes it gets very minutia, it gets very in the weeds, especially when we talk about zoning reform, right? But there's plenty of room at the table, and we're better for the many voices that come to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kate?
Additional election and candidate information is available in the voters' guides created jointly by the Frederick News Post and the League of Women Voters of Frederick County. The guides include information about where, when, and how to vote, as well as candidate answers to policy questions. The Frederick News Post will distribute the English language guide to its hard copy and digital subscribers in the August 16th to 17th edition of the paper. The League will make hard copies of the English and Spanish guides available at Seaburr Arts Library, Centro Hispano of Frederick, the Asian American Center of Frederick, and senior living centers throughout the city, including the Tawney Village Apartments, the Frederick Senior Center on Tawney Avenue, and Homewood. We'll be distributing those as widely as we can. Thank you for being here, and for those online, thank you for watching. A video recording of this event will be available on YouTube. You can find the link on our website at lwv.org. And you should probably add, when you're searching for that email address, that website address, add Frederick County to the search, and you should get to the right place. Or you can find us on Facebook. It's much easier to find us there. Please remember to vote in the primary. Early voting takes place August 22nd and 23rd, and primary election day is September 9th. This is a primary election. There will be more voter guides and more forums for the before the general election in, I believe that's November. So we look forward to inviting folks back to see those forums. Thank you very much.